You've heard their song before. Maybe not in a forest, but in a movie scene where a voice is so beautiful it stops time. In a game where a melody makes you lower your weapon. In a story where something angelic appears and for just a moment you forget to be afraid. That feeling, that pull, that quiet urge to step closer, that is not new. Centuries ago, people believed some songs were not meant for human ears because they didn't just sound beautiful, they changed you. In the old Slavic world, there were two such voices, not witches, not demons, not sirens from the sea. They came from the sky. They had the faces of women, the bodies of birds, and voices so powerful that joy could kill and sorrow could feel like heaven. Their names were Sirin and Alkonost. One sang of a paradise you could never return from. The other sang of happiness so perfect that the world behind you would feel meaningless. To hear them was a blessing. To follow them was a mistake, because these were not creatures that hunted you. They waited. And the most dangerous thing about them was not their wings or their beauty or even their song. It was the simple question they left in your heart. If heaven called your name, would you walk away from everything you are?
Let's clear something up first. Alkonost and Sirin are not Greek sirens. They do not belong to the sea, and they do not exist merely to tempt sailors with desire or physical beauty. Their power does not come from lust, and their danger is far more subtle. Where sirens seduce the body, Alkonost and Sirin seduce the soul. And they are not demons either. In the Slavic imagination, demons are chaotic, violent, and openly hostile. Alkonost and Sirin are something far more unsettling because they are calm, beautiful, and often mistaken for divine. They do not chase, attack, or threaten. Instead, they arrive quietly, as if they have always been there, waiting for the right moment to be noticed. In Slavic belief, these bird women were understood as messengers of fate, beings connected not to evil but to cosmic order. Their songs were believed to carry truths too heavy for the human heart, revealing what lies beyond life, beyond suffering, and beyond time itself. To encounter them was not an accident. It was a moment when fate leaned close enough to whisper. They were said to dwell at the edge of the world, a mythical boundary where reality begins to thin. This was not a place marked on any map, but a spiritual borderland, where life brushes against death, where joy is inseparable from sorrow, and where the human world touches the afterlife. To stand near that edge was to risk forgetting which side you belonged to. And unlike monsters that hunt in the dark, Alkonost and Sirin never pursue their victims. They do not need to. Their power lies in patience. They wait, singing softly, knowing that sooner or later, someone will stop and listen. Sirin is the most dangerous one to misunderstand because nothing about her looks dangerous at all. In old images, she is calm, almost tender, a woman's face framed by feathers, her bird's body resting as if she has nowhere else to be. Crowns and halos often hover above her head, not to mark holiness, but to signal proximity to something no living person is meant to touch for long. She does not appear as a predator, she appears as an answer. Her song is not loud, it does not demand attention, it arrives softly, slipping into the mind like a memory that does not belong to you. Those who hear it describe an immediate sense of relief, as if a weight they never knew they were carrying has suddenly been lifted. The world grows quieter, thoughts slow, pain becomes distant, and in that silence, resistance dissolves. What follows is not terror, but erasure. The song begins to replace memory. Faces of loved ones lose their sharpness, names feel unnecessary. Home becomes an abstract idea rather than a place. Some legends say people followed her voice into forests or across empty fields, walking until their feet bled, unaware that their bodies were failing. Others speak of victims who simply sat where they were, staring into nothing, sustained by the melody while their bodies weakened and their will quietly slipped away. The most unsettling detail is how peaceful it all seems. Sirin's victims do not scream, they do not fight. Some are found smiling, their expressions frozen in a state of calm so profound it feels wrong. as if something human has already left them. The horror is not in how they die, but in how willingly they let themselves disappear. Sirin does not sing of death. She sings of a place before suffering existed, of a paradise lost so completely that the soul aches for it without knowing why. Her song reminds you gently, relentlessly, that this world is imperfect, exhausting, and temporary. And once that thought takes root, returning to ordinary life feels unbearable, even cruel. To hear Sirin is not to be attacked. It is to be convinced, slowly, lovingly, that you no longer belong among the living. If Sirin is sorrow, then Alkonost is joy, but not the kind humans were meant to endure. In Slavic legend, Alkonost's song is described as radiant, weightless, and impossibly gentle. Those who hear it feel an immediate release from pain, fear, and longing, as if every wound, physical or emotional, has been quietly sealed. The world does not vanish. It simply stops hurting, and that perhaps is the most dangerous sensation of all. People believed that to hear Alkonost sing was a sign that divine grace was near. For a brief moment, reality itself seemed softened. Hard edges faded, grief loosened its grip. Even memory lost its sharpness, not through loss, but through irrelevance. Why cling to suffering when it no longer exists? Why remember pain when joy has replaced it so completely? But Alkonost's happiness is not human happiness. It does not rise and fall. It does not require hope, effort, or survival. It is constant, absolute, and overwhelming, an emotional state so perfect that it leaves no room for desire, ambition, or will. Those who linger in her song do not feel the urge to move, speak, or return. There is nothing left to seek, nothing left to become. Legends whisper of people who stood frozen, smiling softly, as if listening to something too beautiful to interrupt. Others lay down willingly, surrendering their bodies as though sleep and death had become indistinguishable. Time lost meaning. Hunger and fear simply stopped. And when the song ended, if it ended at all, the human self was often gone with it. Like Sirin, Alkonost does not force this surrender. She does not need to. Her gift is so complete that the thought of returning to ordinary life, with its pain, effort, and imperfection, feels like cruelty. To leave her song is to choose suffering again. To stay is to drift beyond it forever. Alkonost does not destroy through despair. She destroys by making existence unnecessary. And in that perfect joy, the soul quietly forgets why it ever wanted to live. In later Slavic art and folklore, something quietly unsettling begins to appear. Alkonost and Sirin are no longer depicted alone. They are shown together, often facing the same direction, sometimes even mirroring one another, as if they are not opposites at all, but parts of a single presence. Their closeness suggests that one is never meant to be encountered without the shadow of the other. One sings of joy, the other of loss, yet neither song stands on its own. Joy without sorrow loses meaning, becoming empty and unbearable. Sorrow without joy becomes crushing, stripping life of any reason to continue. In this way, Alkonost and Sirin do not offer escape from suffering. They define it, framing human existence as a fragile balance that must never tip too far in either direction. Their duality reflects the deepest structures of belief: heaven and earth, birth and death, faith and despair. To the Slavs who told these stories, the universe was not divided into good and evil, but into states of being that must coexist. Alkonost and Sirin were not moral judges. They were reminders of what happens when the human soul reaches too far toward either extreme. Some priests and chroniclers believed that these two voices served a spiritual function. Sirin, they said, tested the soul by tempting it with escape, by offering relief through forgetting. Alkonost, in contrast, rewarded the faithful with glimpses of divine joy, but only briefly, only enough to remind them of what awaited beyond death. To linger with either was to fail the test. And this is the most disturbing truth hidden in their legends. There is no victory in choosing one voice over the other. Both lead away from the human world. Both promise peace at the cost of self. The danger is not wickedness, but surrender. Alkonost and Sirin are not good and evil. They are truth and escape, and the terror lies in how easily they can sound the same. When Christianity spread across Slavic lands, Alkonost and Sirin did not vanish. They were too deeply rooted in the collective imagination to be erased. Instead, they transformed. The old pagan world did not disappear overnight. It reshaped itself, adapting its symbols to a new spiritual language. And so these bird women crossed quietly into Christian art, not as demons to be cast out, but as figures to be reinterpreted. Artists began painting them inside churches, illuminating them in manuscripts, and carving their images into sacred spaces. They were given halos, royal crowns, and serene, almost compassionate faces. To the faithful, they looked like angels, but angels of a strange and unsettling kind. Unlike biblical messengers who delivered clear commands, Alkonost and Sirin offered no instruction. They offered feeling. And feeling, the church knew, could be dangerous. People did not believe these beings were monsters. They believed they were reminders, living symbols placed at the edges of sacred art to communicate truths too complex for words. Alkonost reminded believers of divine joy, of the beauty promised beyond death. Sirin reminded them of paradise lost, of longing so deep it could consume the soul. Together they framed the afterlife as something radiant and real, but not something to be reached in haste. This is why they appear so calm, so gentle. Their beauty was meant to teach restraint. Earthly life, these images warned, is fragile and fleeting, yet still necessary. The afterlife may be beautiful beyond imagination, but abandoning life too early, no matter how tempting, was a spiritual failure. To follow their song was not salvation, it was impatience. In this way, Alkonost and Sirin became holy warnings disguised as blessings. Angels not sent to guide humanity forward, but to remind it not to leave too soon. We still tell their story, even when we no longer speak their names. Alkonost and Sirin did not fade with the old gods. They dissolved into archetypes, reappearing wherever beauty becomes dangerous and longing turns fatal. Every time modern stories give us a winged figure who feels holy but unsettling, a voice so beautiful it overrides reason, or a character whose presence promises salvation while quietly erasing identity, we are hearing their echoes. In fantasy and dark folklore-inspired worlds, such as The Witcher, Slavic-inspired games, and Eastern European literature, the idea of beauty that destroys through emotional surrender appears again and again. Characters are drawn toward songs, visions, or beings that do not attack, but invite. The danger is never violence, it is consent. This is Sirin's legacy, the voice that convinces you the world is not worth returning to. Alkonost's shadow appears just as often, though it is harder to recognize. She lives in stories where bliss itself becomes a trap, where characters glimpse perfect peace, eternal joy, or divine harmony, only to lose their will to live as mortals afterward. In novels, films, and philosophical science fiction, paradise is rarely portrayed as evil, but it is often portrayed as incompatible with being human. That is Alkonost's song, translated into modern language. In visual art, especially Russian and Eastern European illustration, Alkonost and Sirin still appear directly, most famously in paintings by artists like Viktor Vasnetsov, where they are depicted side by side, serene and haunting, joy and sorrow rendered indistinguishable. In music, their names live on in choirs, folk compositions, and even metal bands, where their songs are reimagined as hymns of ecstasy and loss. These are not nostalgic references, they are acts of remembrance. What endures most powerfully is the question they pose. Modern stories still circle the same dilemma. If you were offered perfect happiness or absolute peace or a glimpse of heaven at the cost of your ordinary life, would you take it? Would you abandon struggle, pain, and imperfection, even if that meant losing yourself? Alkonost and Sirin haunt us because they do not belong to the past. They belong to the human condition. They remind us that the most dangerous temptations do not look like evil. They look like relief. So remember this old Slavic warning passed down not as a fairy tale, but as a quiet instruction for survival. If you hear singing where no singer should be, not loud, not urgent, but impossibly gentle, and it fills your chest with a longing you cannot name, If, in that moment, your worries feel distant, your memories feel unnecessary, and the world behind you suddenly feels small, heavy, and unbearably imperfect, do not follow. Because it may not be a beast stalking you. It may not be a demon or a nightmare made of teeth and claws. It may be something far more dangerous. It may be Sirin, offering release through forgetting, or Alkonost, offering peace so complete it makes living feel pointless. And the cruelest truth of all is this: they do not force you to choose. They only sing. Once you step toward that voice, once you decide that escape sounds better than endurance, there is no struggle, no violence, no scream. Only silence. And there is no psalm that leads back.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.